Hey guys, so today I am doing a tutorial on adding sleeves. This is what you will need: a ruler. I have a curved one, which is awesome, a marker, some scissors, a little water for my iron, and some clips. So this is what I want the sleeve to look like on the other side, and I've actually modified this pattern. This is Peony pattern Marigold, and I modified the sleeve end because my daughter wanted it a specific way. I marked it 1/2 inch upward, serged the ends of the sleeve, and then just folded it up to that 1/2 inch marking. And that's going to be my encasing of my elastic. Now this amazing ruler that I found on Etsy is curved. It allows me to mark exactly 1/2 inch seam allowance all around the sleeve super quickly, which is amazing and a step that you will need when you're adding the sleeve to the bodice. So once it's marked, I can go ahead and clip around. I like to do this just because there's curvature to the sleeve and I want to be able to kind of stretch it when I'm stitching it onto the bodice. So now that that is done and that's ironed, I can go ahead and sew the sleeve closed on the side. 1/2 inch seam allowance, serger, and then straight stitch. And now I'm ready to enclose my elastic casing by stitching all the way across, but leaving an opening for my elastic to go in. So I have this really cool needle that I use to thread my elastic through. I always put a clip at the end because sometimes after I've done this I forget and I'll just pull it through and I'll have to redo it all again. So that clip really helps at the end so it doesn't pull through. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and mark where you're going to be stitch it and just zigzag it closed. Just like that, and then slip it inside, and you will be closing that opening with just a straight stitch to finish it up. So here it is finished. Now the next step is going ahead and that marking that I did with that curved ruler, that 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm going to iron all the way around so that I know exactly where and how I want it folded when I enclose it. Because it is such a small seam allowance, 1/2 inch, and my elastic is 1/4 inch, you really need to be precise so that it's not too wide or not too narrow for the elastic. So I line up the sleeve right at the center stitch to my bodice, and I go ahead and I serge it on. So you can tell right here I have serged it onto the bodice. You can tell how it matches up to the top of the sleeve, and now I just need to do my 1/2 inch straight stitch all the way across, which I have done right here. You can see that straight stitch lines up with that 1/2 inch seam allowance marking of the sleeve. And I serged all the way around, including through my sleeve. And that's why you really need to be precise because you really need to keep that enclosed perfectly to match the elastic. So I stitched all the way across this top part of the sleeve, and that's going to be my casing for my elastic. And once that is done, I can go ahead and I can thread through my elastic using that needle that I have, giant tool. I can go ahead and thread my elastic and of course add the clip so it doesn't pull all the way through. And just, this is why I tell you you have to be really precise with that seam allowance, and that's why that curved ruler really comes in handy. So once you come to the other end, you can go ahead, pull it out, and then you will need to stitch it on. Now there's 2 ways to stitch it on. You could even stitch right across there, but it will leave a marking on your dress. Or you can attach the elastic right to the end of your seam allowance, and if you do that, you will not have a stitch straight across in the front of your fabric right there. So it's up to you, depends on what you would like. Now I went ahead and I stitched it onto my seam allowance, and when you pull it through, this is what it should look like exactly. And it doesn't have that stitch right across at the front, and it comes out perfectly.